area. You'll also get to hear from some of the social innovators and nonprofits behind the ideas that are in the challenge. And you'll also hear from someone who started an idea in last year's community challenge and hear a little bit about his experience. And you'll get a chance to hear from the Microsoft team who are making this challenge possible, and also from the ChangeX team who'll give you all the details that you need to learn about the challenge and how you can apply to get an idea started in your local community. So with that, just also to say that there will be time for questions and feedback and interaction at the end, but feel free to share any questions or ideas or anything that you have in the chat, and we'll also open it up at the end so people can jump in with maybe organizations locally that you think might be interested, potential collaborations that might be interesting locally. So I'm going to hand over now to Alex Eisen-Ogle, who's the community lead for Microsoft in San Antonio. Hopefully Alex is still with us. I know he was having a little bit of technical issues. Are you still with us, Alex? Maybe he'll be back in a minute. Holly is with us. Oh, Alex is back. Okay,
there he is.
Great. Yeah, Alex, I'll hand over to you and let you introduce a little bit about Microsoft's work in San Antonio. And then Holly Beale is also with us, and she'll give us a little bit more of a wider perspective on the work of the Microsoft Data Center Community Development Team.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I'm sorry if I drop off. My computer is really struggling with the call for some reason. I think about half of you know me. If not, my name's Alex Eisen-Ogle. I'm a program manager for Microsoft. My team is the Data Center Community Development Team, and we typically focus specifically on investing in people and developing communities where our data centers operate. Our charter is to provide social, economic, and environmental benefits, specifically in those data center communities, in partnership with the members and organizations of the communities. So let's go to the next slide here, and we'll show some examples. These are some of the pillars and initiatives that our team focuses on. We have the Community Empowerment Fund, which it is essentially a grant program, but it is we see it more as a seeding fund where we try to find nonprofits. Like my ideal fund would be finding a nonprofit that's sort of in startup mode that really has an incredible, innovative, and inventive idea that can make waves on its own if they just had a little bit of investment up front. So trying to find those and supporting those in our communities is something I like to do, and watching them move forward after that. Workforce development, we have a few programs here, but the flagship program is the Data Center Academy. We work with local education institutions, and essentially when we decommission servers from our data centers, we repurpose them by donating them to the schools and working with some local construction partners to set up data center labs and learning environments for hands-on learning for students. And then we also have community broadband, where we try to focus on areas that really struggle with broadband and get them access that's affordable. And then community environmental sustainability, which Holly works on and does an incredible job with. And then digital skills and transformation, which is new, where we partner with educations and institutions and organizations to make sure that they have digital skills to achieve their goals. And then let's move to the next one. Holly, did you want to speak to this one, or should I?
Go for it.
Go for it, cool. So this is just a few examples of the impact we've been able to achieve in partnership with the communities and organizations we work with. So currently we've got 18 data center communities engaged. The Data Center Academy Workforce Development Program I mentioned, we've got 7 of them operational and running. We're currently working on standing one up in San Antonio right now with Northwest Vista, actually, and in partnership with a few other organizations locally. And so far it's going pretty well. We hope to have it stood up for the next semester here. But yeah, I won't talk to all of these. I'll kind of just let you glance at them. And yeah, and of course, we've done a lot to try to seed money to help with COVID-19 relief. In San Antonio specifically, we worked with the Alamo colleges to support a fund that essentially helped students who were financially burdened through COVID-19 and people who were struggling to just continue their education because, maybe they had a two-spouse income and now they only have a one-person income in their household, and people who were trying to keep their kids educated at home online but didn't have sitters and things like that. And I think we're ready for the next slide. Oh, perfect. So in another example, as Neve mentioned, today we're here to launch, or relaunch rather, our ChangeX initiative in partnership with ChangeX. So I'll pass it to Neve here and the ChangeX team to talk more about that.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, Alex, for sharing the great work that the data center community development team are doing in San Antonio and right across the US. We've been lucky enough to be working with the team now for about 18 months, and it's actually almost a year to the day since we launched the 2019 fund in San Antonio. So I think it might have been December 4th last year. So yeah, we've had some great projects get off the ground there. Some of them have had to maybe stall a little bit because of COVID, but we've kind of reoriented the portfolio for this year so that teams can organize in different ways. So I'm going to let Paul O'Hara, who's the CEO of ChangeX, just introduce ChangeX and tell us a little bit more about what happened in San Antonio so far and give you an overview of this year's fund and the community challenge.
Great, thanks a million, Neve. Hello from Ireland, everybody. I hope all is well in Texas or wherever you might be. I am, just delighted to be here for year 2 of this community challenge that we kicked off a year ago in San Antonio with, I'm sure some of you here, and with Holly and Alex. So we're delighted to be back for year 2. So for those of you to whom ChangeX is new, just a little bit of background. Neve and I got together and started ChangeX a little over 5 years ago in a rural community in the west of Ireland called the Burren. And the idea was, there's all these amazing ideas that crop up in different communities across the world that could and should be replicated in other communities. So what we wanted to do was try and package up ideas that were proven to work in a number of places that could be easily adopted by communities elsewhere if communities thought those ideas were relevant to their own. Just about getting ideas that work spreading more effectively. And so we were delighted to partner with Microsoft in this effort last year. So I think it was about 18 months ago we kicked off this partnership, and we've been working together now in I think 10 different regions in the US and in the UK, and soon to be in some other locations in Europe. So it's been very exciting, and obviously things have been slowed down a little bit with COVID, but we have tried to adapt, and I think we've been able to get good traction in the last couple of months, as I think we're all adapting to this new environment. So just this slide here just talks a little bit about how ChangeX works. So it's a platform that connects communities with ideas that work, social innovations and funding. So we curate and package replicable ideas like urban tree planting, for example. Funding partners fuel local community teams, in this case Microsoft, and then local teams activate the ideas with finance. So that could be a group of students, it could be a group of teachers, retirees, friends, existing nonprofits, or totally new formations. And then we measure and share the impact outcomes of that. So just jumping on a slide there, Katie. So these are, these are just some a small selection of the highlights from the San Antonio challenge over the past 12 months. So there's been 17 new community projects activated, impacting 620 people, and the fund deployed was $32,000. So just a few of the impacts, there's a couple of hundred trees planted, resulting in 113,000 pounds of CO2 prevented per year. A little over 200 people growing their own food. There's 4 new pollinator habitats supporting an increase in presence and diversity of pollinators. So you can see the kind of sustainable theme that was the focus of the fund last year. So if we could just jump on and we can talk a little bit about the fund for this year. So launching, as Niamh said, a year to the day almost. So launching today, the fund size will be quite a bit bigger than last year, so $58,000. The grant sizes remains the same at that $500 to $5,000 range. The region is the Bexar and Medina counties. Up to 25 projects we envisage backing this coming year. There's 13 ideas to choose from, so we've added some great new ideas that Katie and Niamh will run through in a little bit, and you'll hear from some of the creators of those ideas as well. And the themes are covering sustainability, digital skills, and prosperous communities. So,
great, thanks, Paul.
Hand it back to Niamh.
Yeah, so before we kind of dive into a bit more detail on this year's fund and the various ideas that people can start, I'm just going to call on Mateen Diop from San Antonio School District, who actually started a recycling project in his school last year. So, hi Mateen, you're very welcome.
Hey, how are y'all? Thank you for having me on today.
No problem. Yeah, could you tell us just a little bit about your experience of applying to the community challenge last year and then starting the recycling project? If I could just ask everyone to mute when you're not speaking, because there's just a little bit of feedback. Great. Okay. So go ahead, Mateen.
Yeah, again, thank you. I a high school principal last year at an inner city school here in San Antonio, and our needs were many. And I applied for the recycling grant. We actually went through a bunch of different iterations of things we like to do. And since our school was under construction, we didn't do the tree planting or some of those bigger things because we were under construction and we didn't have a lot of space. And so my National Honor Society students needed a project to attach to their application, if you would, for college and whatnot. So we came up with the recycling. If you know anything about the neighborhood that my school was in, it can get kind of trashy sometimes. So we decided to try to clean that part of the community up, and that's what we did. So we ordered these huge trash cans, and that's what we did with some of the funding. We ordered these huge trash cans, and we had recycling day, and it was going really well again until COVID hit. But kids were, it was fun to watch because once the teachers and everybody got involved with it, and as a high school principal, I was already going paperless. So we didn't have a lot of paper on my campus to begin with because we were all digital. But the paper that we did have, once we shredded it and all that, it was all recycled, all the boxes and all the lunch stuff. Everything was sustainable and recycled, and we recycled everything. So the program was going really well, again, until we had to shut it down. But and I'm no longer at that school. So I'm assuming it's still going well, but it was going well last year.
Great, thank you. And I know from speaking with you that you felt the impact was not just about the recycling, but also about enabling the students to really take the lead on the project. And
absolutely,
what impact did you think it had from that perspective?
Yeah, so I said the part of it, if you know anything about the National Honor Society in high school, it's really about student leadership. And once the adults, our role was really just to keep the students safe. When they're going out and they're going to do any kind of recycling project, we just kind of stand back as adults and watch them. So they really took ownership of the program. It was funny to watch them in the cafeteria in different places and telling their teachers, no, we're going to recycle that. Don't throw it. We're going to recycle that. We're going to do this. And so once everybody bought in, it's funny when you let students take over. When you let them run it, it goes a lot smoother. And that's what happened. They really became leaders. They were already leaders on campus, but this really gave them more of an opportunity to lead.
Brilliant. Yeah, that sounds great. And we actually have some more kind of education or school-based projects in this year's fund. So would you have any top tips for anyone who's thinking about starting one of these ideas, applying for the funding?
If you're on the education side, if you're in a school, I would say let the students decide. I mean, since now you have an opportunity to talk to them. I mean, I had to take a top-down approach, but I would encourage, if you're doing anything involving students or anything involving anyone in the community, is to let them decide what they need. So too many times we go into a community and we'll tell them what they need. I always thought that was a bit masterish, if you would. So we need to go in. I would suggest, ask the community what the community needs and how we can help, and then apply for funding based on what they say, not on what we think they need.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's great advice and is relevant across all the ideas, not just the education ones. So thanks so much, Mateen, for sharing, and well done on the impact. And I've no doubt that those students are still leading that recycling project in your absence.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, so now we might move on to just learn a little bit more about this year's fund and how it works. So I'm going to hand over to Katie Smith, who's also on the ChangeX team, to share some more details.
Thanks a million, Niamh. Can everyone see the slides sharing again? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, we'll get on to the more exciting aspect in a couple of minutes, which is the ideas themselves. But firstly, I'm just going to quickly run through how the actual challenge process works. So you'll come to the fund landing page. This is a screenshot of it, which is just launched today. And you'll see there's 15 ideas which you can choose to start in your community. And as Mateen said, you know, that should come from your community or from your students as to which of the ideas are the right ones for you and which there's a need for. So once you choose the idea you want to start, you'll go through what we call a 30-day challenge. So you'll have a month to complete a number of simple steps, which will involve having a call with one of us on the ChangeX team. So myself or Niamh or Nicole here on the call will speak to you about your idea and what your plans are. You'll also have to build out your teams. This is probably the most important step. So you'll need to get a team of 5 people together to lead the project in your community. And you'll also need to have a meeting with that team where you'll build out your action plan, your budget, and your COVID safety plan. And you'll upload all that to the site, and that's your kind of first challenge completed. And we'll then, once we do a short due diligence process, release 70% of the funding that's been assigned to you. So each idea has a different amount assigned to it, but somewhere between $500 and $5,000, depending on the costs associated with starting the project. So you'll receive 70% of that funding at that point. Then you'll get your project up and running in your community. And a few months down the line, we'll get back in touch with you and ask you to share your impact with us. So what's been happening, we want to see some photos, how many people have been impacted. And at that stage, we'll release the remaining 30% of your funding. So who can apply? So both Microsoft and ChangeX want this fund to be as accessible as possible to everyone in the community. So once you're located in Bexar or Medina counties, and you're passionate about having an impact in your community, this is likely for you. So the funding is available to individuals once they form a team as part of that challenge, to existing neighborhood groups, community groups, nonprofits, schools, retirement centers, any kind of community organization or individual once they have a team. And so what you'll get, so we will provide the funding, as we said, so between $500 and $5,000, depending on the idea. You'll also receive a free starter pack in the mail, which will include a general pack on how to start any community project in your neighborhood or your community, and also a more detailed guide on how to start the particular project that you have chosen. You'll also get a page on our ChangeX site where you can manage your team and set up events and share impact with each other. And yeah, I think that is it. If there's quite a lot to take in there, so if there's any questions at all, just pop them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them as we go through. Thanks a million.
Great, thanks, Katie. And yeah, please do share any questions, and we'll also have time to discuss them at the end. So yeah, Katie, if you just want to jump on to the next slide there. And yeah, so we have 13 different innovations that local communities across San Antonio can start. And all these ideas are ideas that have worked elsewhere, across the US and different parts of Europe. But they always need to be kind of adapted to what your local context is, so that you can kind of take the idea and get the guide and then adapt it to how it might work for you in San Antonio. So I think I said we've expanded the kind of selection of ideas to also include digital skills this year. which is going to be relevant in community centres and schools and libraries. And we've also added some new kind of community prosperity or livability ideas, which are quite exciting. We've also made some adaptations for COVID. So obviously we're all living a little bit differently now, and the kind of process and the guides kind of take account of that and provide particular guidance on dealing with that and how to kind of start the idea around the restrictions that are in place. So yeah, so now we're going to hear from some of the people behind these ideas. So we have a few with us today. So I might go first to Cabret Yevitit, who's calling us from New York, from Girls Who Code.
Thanks, Neve. And hi, everybody. I am a community partnerships manager at Girls Who Code, and I work with school districts, library networks, as well as nonprofit organizations to bring our free coding curriculum to their students. The idea and intention behind starting a Girls Who Code club, of course, is to capture young women's interest in STEM, and starting a club is as easy as possible so that that process is as easy as possible. We provide all the resources, the free curriculum, as well as just continued support from our end to help folks teach students coding. We don't expect facilitators of clubs to have any CS experience. It really is designed for folks to kind of take a leap with their students and learn alongside them. This year, of course, we've pivoted virtual, so we see that most of our participants are participating in virtual clubs over the calendar year or the academic school year. We're really happy to work with ChangeX, and we've already seen some traction in other sites, so we're excited to get started in San Antonio.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Cabret. And now I might go to Miriam Samaro from FIRST Robotics. We have 3 different FIRST programs on the platform, but she might just give us an overview for how it works.
Thank you. I'm Miriam Samra. I am from Manchester, New Hampshire, but I am representing today Jeffrey Call, who is from the San Antonio area. So FIRST is a nonprofit inspiring kids into STEM, right? We want them to be science and technology leaders and innovators, and by engaging them in all of the amazing activities that we offer. And 3 of them are First LEGO League Discover, First LEGO League Explore, and First LEGO League Challenge. And each one is for a different age group. So students or community groups in the San Antonio area will be able to start a new team with the funds that they receive. So if they are pre-K through grade 1, it might be take place in a classroom setting. That's our Discover program. And then grades 2 through 4 or 4 through is Explore, and our grades 4 through 8 is our Challenge program. This year we have adapted our program to be remote. So students don't need to be in person to be a part of our team, but they can still have an amazing experience.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Miriam. And yeah, we've seen a lot of demand for starting FIRST teams right across the US over the past few weeks. And now I'm going to go back to Ireland to John Evoy from Grow Remote to tell us a little bit about what Grow Remote is and what a chapter might look like in San Antonio.
Thanks a million, Neve. Yeah, so I'm John Evoy, General Manager of Grow Remote, and Grow Remote is an organisation that promotes the accessibility and availability of remote working anywhere, so that people can live, work and participate wherever they want. So we do this in several ways. We work with companies and individuals, but very importantly, we also, for this call in particular, we work with communities where communities of remote workers come together and they start a local chapter, which can then, and a bit like Mantine's advice, they choose what their own goals are, so they can drive that community forward. We found that with remote workers, like the biggest challenges to ongoing remote work is not like technical issues such as broadband, but it's much more likely to be things like isolation or loneliness. So remote workers coming together on a regular basis can really help to develop a flourishing community, and then a flourishing community of remote workers has a great knock-on positive effect for the entire community as they live and spend their money locally. So we've got about 140 chapters all over the world. About half of them are in Ireland, but we've got several across the United States, and we'd love to see many more started. So yeah, we're here for any questions.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, John. And I see that someone asked if contact details will be shared. We can share all the contact details from the various organizations in the chat. And we'll also be sending links to all these different ideas afterwards. So the final idea that we're going to introduce is Urban Thinkscape and Shelley Kessler from Playful Learning Landscapes in Philadelphia. This is actually the newest idea on the ChangeX platform. It's just added today, so hot off the press. So Shelley, will you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Sure, and thank you. We're thrilled to be part of this. Playful Learning Landscapes is about transforming underutilized public spaces into joyful, learning-enhanced opportunities for families, and giving kids and their caregivers opportunities to play and learn together. Our work is based on the science of how children learn and how they best absorb new information. So the Urban Thinkscape project really is about taking bus stops or other underutilized spaces and adding elements, whether it's pentagrams on the street or a puzzle wall that engages children and their parents or their caregivers in conversations and learning that enhance literacy, STEM, and executive functioning skills. The designs really will be chosen by the communities. We typically work with communities to make their choices. As Mateen had said earlier, if the community decides, it's much better and they'll want to keep it. Anyway, we are so thrilled to see this as part of this initiative, and we hope that we can see urban thinkscapes popping up all over San Antonio.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Shelley. And yeah, we're very excited to see that too. So my colleagues, Katie and Nicole, are just going to give a quick overview of the remaining ideas, and then we'll share a link to the kind of fund landing page where you can learn lots more about these ideas. So I might hand over to Nicole Eggleston, who's in Baltimore and is going to, describe some of the ideas to us.
Thanks, Neve. So for it's a project where community members can plant fruit trees in public spaces in their community, and that provides free fruit and some greenery to their environment. For Community Fridge, it's fridges where individuals and businesses supply food to people in need. And those fridges are placed in public spaces like schools, community centers, businesses. And we've actually seen a surge in the last few months for community fridges across the US due to the food shortage in food banks and pantries. And with river cleanup, we've partnered with American Rivers, which is a national organization, to do a community initiative aiming to clean and maintain local rivers across the US. So now I will pass it off to Katie.
Thank you, Nicole. I'll just run through the remaining ideas here. So pollinator partnership and bee-friendly farming are both ideas that come from the nonprofit based in California called Pollinator Partnership, and they're all about pollinator support and pollinator health. So the pollinator partnership idea is to create a pollinator habitat in a community space, so in a school or in a public garden or parkland that protects and looks after pollinators with water and food and shelter. A bee-friendly farming project is like this, but in a farm setting. So that can be in a small urban farm or in a large rural farm. And a farm can become a bee-friendly farm when they have between 3 and 6% of their land managed in a bee-friendly or pollinator-friendly manner. Cycling Without Age is an idea that originated in Copenhagen, and it connects older adults with their communities by volunteer-run trishaw rides. And their slogan is feeling the wind in your hair, or the right to wind in your hair. So it's a really lovely idea and starting to take off in the US. Hour of Code is now an international initiative. I think it's in more than 180 countries, and it introduces millions of students to 1 hour of computer science and programming. So this idea is one that's really suitable for schools and other community organizations. community composting then, that this idea originated in Ohio. And the idea is to bring people in a community together to divert food waste and compost it instead. In many community settings, there aren't composting available for individual households. So this is a project that allows those households to come together and act as a community unit to get composting from a local organization. And I think that's all of them covered. Yeah, I think that's it. So I'll hand back to Niamh.
Great, thanks so much, Katie. Yeah, so that's kind of a quick overview of the ideas. And so now I think we can open it up to feedback, questions. We would love to hear, particularly from those of you who are in San Antonio, which of these ideas you think might resonate there, which of these ideas you're excited about. I've seen some great comments and questions in the chat. But yeah, Vanita has a couple of questions. I think we can answer most of those. So your first one on which the programs are 5,000 and which are 500. So there's a range going from 500 up to 5,000. When you go on to the fund landing page, which Katie, if you haven't already, you might share, you'll see on each idea, it'll say the funding amount. So the funding amount is really driven by what it costs to get that project going. So there's various amounts for each one, and it's very clear once you get onto the page. And then, can one nonprofit apply for multiple programs? Yeah, so there's two questions there that I think Katie can answer. So the first one, Katie, would you mind answering Vanita on can one nonprofit apply for multiple programs? And you might also just give a little bit of further context on the community composting idea as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So generally we have a rule that one organization or individual can only apply once for funding for one idea. We do make an exception for First Lego League because there's the 3 different age groups. So we do have some schools who are applying for all 3 because we find that it's actually most impactful if the whole school comes on board. But in general, each organization can just apply for one idea. A caveat to that is that last year's applicants who did receive funds in the San Antonio Challenge last year can apply to start a different idea this year. But if that's not clear, come back to me. There's also a composting question. We totally understand that it can be dangerous with animals and it can cause a mess as well. So the way that the project works is that a local composting company will provide the bins. So that's one of the steps, is to get in touch with a local composting company, and they service the bins, and they can put locks, padlocks. Some people just use stones on top. There's different ways around it, but definitely one of the steps is to make sure that they're safe and secure. So that is definitely a consideration. It's something that you can work with the local composting company on.
Great, thanks, Katie. I hope that answers Vanita.
Yes, can I ask, describe a situation and ask question according to that?
Yes.
Yeah,
so, of course. I work with a volunteering organization. We have been pretty active in San Antonio for a long time. Mm-hmm. And there's one thing I really need, if you can, any one of you can provide me information. So we have like bunch of kids here, high school kids, who are actually doing 1 hour of coding or computer related teaching every week. But right now they are doing it for a school in San Francisco, and that is going to end in December. So we were trying to find something locally where these kids can themselves do it locally to some school, but if possible remotely or something close to where we live. We basically live in a better area. We don't live in an area where there's really need for all those things, but the kids cannot travel on their own, but they can do remote learning even when COVID is over. So if you have any school resource which are willing to take the services of these kids, high school kids, it'll be great. We could just jump on that right away. So that way we have a partnership with you, through you, to a school, and we don't really have to go hunting and building a relationship with the school that really needs this. So that is one thing I need. Then the other thing is the volunteer organization is opening their own school. It will be like daycare plus after school care plus yoga studio with some learning. It's non-profit for sure. And we'll be teaching like Vedic math, which is mostly related from India. So we'll be teaching things from India, meditation, yoga. So they just got a space, like a big piece of land right in the middle of Bear County. And I was thinking about, we do have plans for community gardens, but you don't have that this year in your a project that you're sponsoring. So we could do the orchards one, but I'm also interested in the pollinator one for them. And I'm also interested in the composting one for them.
It sounds like
The community scapes, because they have it right in the middle of the city, so they can build walls and we can do some nice learning on it, but it's not public space. So I mean, a lot of this can be applied to that particular organization itself. So how do I go about doing that?
I guess the first step would be to decide which of those projects you mentioned is the one that you want to apply for funding for, like viable options. It sounds like an amazing space that you have. So if you can apply for funding for one of them, but that's not to say that you can't implement different aspects of many of the projects into your garden. So, if you went with a pollinator project, you could have a composting system on the side. You just can't get funding for the composting on top of it. But the pollinator funding, should cover quite a bit and might cover some of the composting as well. So you could try to do it all, I guess, or just start small and then go.
Right. And what about getting connected to a school for volunteers who are already doing that, and they just need like a receiving group right now? We don't have a set receiving group right now.
Yeah. Neve, do you, I mean, that's something, so
well, it sounds like maybe resources, like for example, through Hour of Code or Girls Who Code, you can access lots of different resources that would help kids to learn coding, so they can do it remotely, or they can start to come together when that's
so I have the volunteers, I need the students. So I have the opposite problem.
Okay, so you need to find local schools then.
Yes, that's what I need.
Yeah, okay.
Because usually you have to build a relationship with them and take 6 to 12 months to do that. So I was wondering if you already have a relationship, and we have volunteers. So we basically need to keep them engaged, because that is one of our community work that we want to continue to do.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, I don't know, is there anyone else on the call who I know Mateen obviously has connections to schools, but we'll be kind of presenting this opportunity to schools across San Antonio to get funding to start some of these ideas, but we can't make that connection for you. But yeah, just if anyone else wants to jump in with questions or feedback or ideas for how any of these projects might work in San Antonio, we'd love to hear. So I know that many of you are, involved in community projects in San Antonio, and you might be thinking about how you can spread the word or let other people know about these. So we will be sharing a communications pack with you after this. So Alex will send out an email that'll have the link again to the fund landing page and some suggested social media posts. So yeah, we'd really love if you could help to get the word out there within your community groups, whether it's schools or community gardens or whoever the relevant people might be that might be interested in applying to this funding. We'd really love if you could help us to spread the word. So yeah, any other questions? Katie has just asked a question of the group there to see what people's favorite ideas are. So I don't know if anyone wants to jump in on that. Yeah, that's a good point that you raise, Venetia. We're conscious that, it's coming very close to the end of the year. So we expect that people will be applying over the next couple of weeks, and then it might kind of slow down or be a little bit quiet over the holiday period. So when you apply, you have 30 days within which to complete your challenge and then receive the funding. So I guess if you're applying now, you kind of have a few weeks before the holidays to get it done. But then you can apply in January as well. We'd expect that, and that was our experience last year, that a lot of the projects kind of started in the new year. So people might start their application and build their team and get their plan in place in this period before the end of the year, with then the project starting then later in January and into the springtime. And of course, the restrictions with COVID will also play a role in that. So people might want to, get planning now, but then maybe not really activate or start the project until a couple of months' time.
And just to expand on that, there's no official deadline for when you have to get your applications in. It's a kind of a first come, first funded process, I suppose. So we kind of continue to allocate funds until the funding runs out. So we would say you should apply as soon as possible, but there's no deadline.
Yeah, one other thing, just in thinking about spreading the word on this, it's in our experience, it's pretty unusual when funds are truly accessible to everybody. So, you don't have to be a registered 501c3 or whatnot to be in receipt of these funds. So we are really eager to get the word out to communities that typically wouldn't have access because they don't have the legal structures or the forms or whatever. So anyway, bear that in mind as you're spreading the word. We just really want to get this out and make sure that people know that they can access it regardless of whether they have a formal organization or not.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's an important point. So I might ask a question of Alex then from Microsoft. Alex, will you just tell us what will success look like in San Antonio, or what's your kind of ambition for the impact that this project might have over the coming months?
Absolutely, yeah. First of all, thank you everybody for joining and sticking around. I know everyone's getting really busy as Christmas and New Year's approach. I think success looks a lot like Mateen's story, actually. It was exciting to hear from him because when I first talked with you and the team about some of these initiatives, I remember that one in particular sticking out to me because I thought, being raised in San Antonio, we're not super incredible at recycling. And there's not a lot of early student education around recycling as well. So hearing that the students kind of took over that project themselves and continued it after the fact was a perfect example of what I think success looks like. Because I think those students will grow up with that knowledge and continue to sort of share their perspective and encourage other people to recycle and just continue to do that over time. I think it's perfect. But yeah, so with that said, as the team's already mentioned, please do help us share out this program and these initiatives. The reason I selected the people in this call specifically is because everybody's shown to have an affinity for community work and community development and just giving back to the community in general. So again, thank you all for joining. And as Neve mentioned, an email afterwards, please feel free to share that to your contacts. If you're a Microsoft employee that works in EDU or business, please share it with them as well. And we really, really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much, Alex. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, then we might call it a day. I see Armen, is it okay to share on social media? Yeah, absolutely. We actively encourage you to share on social media, and we'll try and make it as easy as possible for you by providing some content and photos and things like that. So yeah, I just want to say a quick thank you to Alex and Holly and the Microsoft team for making this all possible and for being such great partners to work with. And then thanks so much to Mateen for sharing his story. And there's lots of stories like his happening right across San Antonio. And I'm sure after this, there'll be many, many more. Also want to thank the social innovators who kindly are working with us and sharing their ideas and for joining us today. Shelley and John and Cabret and Miriam. And yeah, thanks to the ChangeX team as well. So yeah, like Alex said, we'll be sharing that information and the communications pack with you all. And just reach out to Katie, Nicole, or I if you have any questions. And yeah, looking forward to seeing some of these projects pop up right across San Antonio. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day.
Thanks to you as well, Neve. And
thanks everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you all.